Here are my cotton seeds just 12 days after starting them. And you can see these 3 little plants in the front are geraniums. But the rest of these, 4 little plants, the rest of these are cotton seeds. And you can see that 4 of the brown have come up. And looks like the rest of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are green. The white seems to be, there's 1 white up, and which surprises me because usually white is very easy to start. So the green and the brown have come up and seem to be doing very well. These 4 in the back, maybe this one also, because they're getting tall, I'm going to put them into like a 3-inch clay pot, and I will start moving those outside even though they only have their initial leaves. And I'll put them outside for about an hour at a time in a 3-inch clay pot with the same potting soil mix, which is just a standard houseplant mix that I picked up at a grocery store. And I'm not sure why the white are having a problem. They could have been older. You can see this one probably is not going to come up. It looks like it may have rotted. This one has its shoot out, but I don't know if it'll go up or down the way it's supposed to. And here's a brown one that has not come up. Even with that, these seeds were at least 2 years old, so this is a good result. And I can't say that I'm upset that it's the green and the brown that have come up and that seem to be doing well. So I have these by the front door now. They're usually under lights, but because I'm going to be transplanting these larger ones, and I want them to start going outside, before I do that today, I'll leave them near the natural light, because natural sunlight is completely different from fluorescent lighting. And it's stronger. Even the palest of natural light is stronger than fluorescent lighting. So I'm going to leave them here by the door until I get those plants potted up. I'm ready to transplant my cotton seedlings, and I just want to show you what I have. I save all my old clay pots, so you'll see they aren't brand new and perfect, but you know what? Clay ages with time, and they remain just as porous, and that's the advantage to clay pots, is that they're porous. So when you have a plant like cotton that likes good drainage, I think it's very important that they're in clay pots. If you have a plant that really requires a lot of moisture, like an orchid, then they should usually be in my opinion, in a plastic pot, because the plastic will retain more moisture. With clay pots, you may have to water more often, but it's better for the plant, especially from what I've read about cotton. They like good drainage and hot weather. So here I have, I was going to do 3-inch pots, but I'm going to put them, I have 10 plants that I can put into these pots. And I'm going to use 4-inch pots. They all have to be washed off, but I'll do that as I water. In the days when I first was very active in horticulture, I would have scrubbed these pots and sterilized them, maybe even in the oven at like 185 degrees for an hour. I don't do that as much anymore, because when you take care of your plants and you pay them attention, you water them correctly, they're planted correctly, you really find that you don't have a lot of pests. It's June, almost July. We're going into the heat. If I were doing this in the winter and they were going to be indoors, I might actually want to sterilize them, because I don't want any mold to grow with indoor plants. But because these are going to be outside in the heat, they should be fine the way they are. So that's one step I don't have to do. Now these plants are in medicine cups. They're about 3.5 inches tall. So when they go into these pots, they're going to have a lot of room. If these cotton plants do well, they probably will not have to come out of these pots because I'm starting this so late in the year. They may not come out of these pots for this year. I may end up wintering them over in this size pot depending on how fast they grow, how well they do. The next size pot would be a 6-inch pot. And, you know, if I had a very hot summer and a long growing time, then I would expect these to be in like a gallon container by September. But I don't think they're going to grow that fast in Massachusetts because we just have cooler temperatures. In the bottom of each pot is a rock. You'll see there's the drainage hole for the pot. And I just walked around and collected a few rocks. And you want to just place the rock over the hole so that water can get out through the drainage hole. That also helps to prevent bugs coming in through the drainage hole, like earwigs or those roly-poly bugs that I never know the real name of. Wood mice is what they're called. You can also use a piece of clay pot. And so you put the rock in, and then you're going to fill the pot with about, I don't know, 1/3. Fill the pot about 1/3 with soil. This is a standard soil from the grocery store. Now, if these were in peat pots, I could just put the whole thing in there, but I can't because these are plastic. You see the root system? These are only 12 days old, and look at those roots. So maybe these will go into bigger pots faster than I think. So what you want to do, and I'm going to try to do this with one hand without damaging the plant, is pop the whole thing right out. And there you go. That's a healthy root system on a seedling, and this one is Earlene's green cotton. You're going to put that on top of your soil that you've placed in the pot, and then you're going to take more soil and fill in around it. Now, some plants, when you're doing this, the stem section that is above the soil is very sensitive to being buried. Not all plants, but some plants are like that. With this cotton plant, I can get a little soil above the previous soil line, and I don't think it'll hurt the plant. Now, you can see there's about 1.5 inches to the top of the container. I think as these get bigger and that stem section becomes more established, I'll add more soil toward the top. Now, when these are rained on or when you water, the nutrients will go down through the soil to the root system. If you water from the bottom, the roots will just suck it up out of the water that's in the soil. This is looking like a very good soil mixture. It's nice and dark. It's probably got cow manure or something in it. As long as it drains well enough, because you don't want plants to be soggy. You don't want this to become compacted or soggy. Normally I would add sand, but I'm going to see how they do with this. I can always pop them back out and put them in a different mix. It's better if you do it right the first time, but I think with the rock at the bottom and the fact they're in clay pots, they should have enough drainage. There are 6 of the plants that have now been put into larger pots, and what I'm going to do, they'll each have a tray underneath the pot to retain water. But what I'm going to do, transplanting is always a little bit shocky for a plant, even if you keep the roots intact as much as possible. But they really need to be soaked right now. They need as much water as you can give them. Watering them from, sorry, that was a fly. Watering them from the top is okay. But what I'm going to do is find a container, probably like a dishpan size container, fill it half full with water and put them in it and let them soak up as much water. It'll take a few hours, but it's better for the plant to do it that way. And another thing that I might do, I have a tent set up that I've been using for processing wool and other fibers. And I had forgotten, when it's early in the season and you need to protect from frost, I have little pop-up greenhouses that go over plants that you place outside. These may be able to go in my tent for about a week to get used to the outdoors instead of me moving them in and out every day. The tent would screen quite a bit of light. It's also hotter in the tent than outside of the tent, even though I have really good ventilation in it. It may act as a perfect little greenhouse for them for a week or so. The problem would be if I tend to leave them in there too long, they wouldn't be getting enough light. My tent is beige and green, and it would just block out too much light for them really to be healthy. So it would be a temporary, not longer than a week would I leave them in there, but that may get them used to the changes in temperature at night, natural light, and even though, I mean, I would do that naturally in the beginning of the season, but this is June going into July. So what I would have to worry about is that if the tent gets too hot, I would have to take them out of the tent because, you know, no plant can really take too much heat. But they could go in there for at least a week, and it might actually be an easy way for them to transition to being outdoors. By the time they come out of there, it'll be about the second week in July, which usually is pretty hot up here, and they may like that, and they may do well. But here they are transplanted, and now they'll be watered, and we'll see how they do.